morning. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. My name is Tony Fisher and I am pleased to welcome you into our service this morning and grateful to be here with you. I'm grateful to be here with Daniel Goodsit in the AV room and John Forsyth. We're welcoming back today singer-songwriter Leah Morris, who's going to be providing our music for the day. I've been looking forward to that. And, of course, our worship associate, Catherine Costello, who asked that we start our service this morning with the chime. She's missing that. So Catherine is up, and we'll give you the announcements.
Hard to believe it is November 15th in this surreal year we're calling 2020, and that it's halfway through the month and just about 10 days before Thanksgiving, whatever that may be for you this year. And here we are again, online, trying to stay connected in a pandemic world. Should we at least mention that on top of the election, we just got through erratic Hurricane Eta bumping up the Florida coast, the 28th named hurricane? Is hurricane season over yet? I guess I have to add to that question, is the election over yet? By comparison, a mere hurricane seems like small potatoes, right? So if you're watching this service this morning, I'm assuming that you're holding it all together, at least moderately well, and are hoping to experience a bit of togetherness. Even in this time of separation, each of us is encouraged to grow spiritually in fellowship with others by joining in worship and in online opportunities that offer education, reflection, and discussion. We are a welcoming congregation, and if you are new to us, we'd like very much to include you in our regular news blasts via email. There's also our virtual coffee hour page on Facebook that's available for you to connect to others 24/7. To everyone here this morning, please use the live chat bar to say hello or make a comment so that even though you aren't sitting in this sanctuary, we can feel a bit more together. The worship associate, today that's me, is charged with giving announcements. So here goes. Our wonderful Wednesday program this week will offer the second part in a two-part series on Buddhism. Our special guest will be Laurie Lyons, Zen teacher and director of Zen and the Arts. This week's Q&A with the minister on Thursday night will be a session on myth-busting Unitarian Universalism. And yes, Virginia, there really are UU myths. Come and have some fun and learn a little something in the process. Are you committed to a long and healthy life? Then sign the Blue Zones Pledge. UUCGN is restarting its efforts to become a Blue Zones project by being an approved faith-based organization. And in order to do that, we need at least 25% of the congregation to pledge the Blue Zone principles. Please take a look at the announcement in the weekly and Sunday news to find out more and help us become a Blue Zones congregation. Last but not least, it's time for our annual holiday giving tree project. In past years, we fulfilled wish lists for local school children by selecting gift tags from our holiday tree. This season, however, due to the coronavirus pandemic and the church being closed, we will be having, wait for it, here it comes, a virtual giving tree. The families we will be supporting this year are from Avalon and Shadow Lawn Elementary Schools in Naples and Immokalee Middle School. Check out the information in the Sunday news or on the website and donate to what continues to be a wonderful way for us to give back to our local community. And now, let us center ourselves by finding a comfortable position, taking a deep breath, and entering into this time of worship.
May I ever use my hands for lifting up. May I ever use my voice for speaking truth. May I consecrate each day and live with joy and wonder. May I sow in peace as all the wild things do. I will ever use my voice for lifting up. This voice was made for peace. I will ever use my eyes for seeking truth. These eyes were made for truth. I will consecrate each day and live with joy and wonder. I will sow in peace as all the wild things do. There is peace on I will reap in peace as all the wild things do. Wild and precious, we are wild and precious. Life is wild and precious.
Here, in this place of peace, may we find hope. Here, in this place of connection, may we find life-giving community. Here, in this place of rest, let the unrest in our hearts turn us toward justice. Here, in this place, made sacred by memories of connection, let each of us feel part of the new that grows from the old in the spiraling unity of years. Let's join together in saying our chalice lighting response. Words are on the screen. May this flame stir our hearts and remind us of our mission to be truly welcoming, to grow in mind and spirit, and to widen the circle of peace, justice, and love. Let's join in singing Morning Has Broken, led by Leah Morris.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where our feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
Among the many anxieties we hold these days, I believe, is the uncertainty about where we're going to land when all this is over. And by all this, I mean everything. All the things in the world and the country over which we have no control. The virus, the political stalemate, the social unrest, the great divides within the population, the environment, our inability to focus on any or one of these things long enough to consider how we best might articulate that concern within our own lives and maybe figure out how to act on that. And because at least some of these things are existential in nature, truly life-threatening, we have a tendency to shy away from facing them. But if I'm not mistaken, somewhere deep inside, we hold a hope that there is a way through. It may be a tenuous hope, but there it is, tied inextricably to the life force that resides within each and every one of us, no matter where we're from or what we think, or what we look like. You might even hold the faint hope that we are at a turning point. The term inflection point has been used to describe this moment in history, the idea that we are in the middle of a great turning. In differential geometry, an inflection point is where the curve of a line or plane changes from one direction to another, from concave to convex. Technically, it's the point on the curve where the curvature changes sign. It's not a change you see immediately, but it's where the equation shifts and the arc begins to bend in a new direction. In language, inflection is the tone, pitch, cadence, accent in which we express something. A change of inflection can totally change the meaning or emotion in a sentence or phrase. It can relate certainty. Ooh, I know the answer. Or uncertainty. I know the answer. It can express the joy of discovery. I know the answer. Or the feeling of being lost. I know the answer. Well, what's the question? Asked in a particular way, today's question, where do we go from here? Might suggest doom and gloom. But asked in another way, where do we go from here? Suggests interest, curiosity, and possibility, with some excitement worked in, and the idea of working out an answer, and perhaps a hope that we are indeed at an inflection point. We might take the opportunity alive in this moment, change the equation, and begin bending the arc.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Flow with the wind, rise in the seas. Move in my hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close.
Both Catherine and I have spoken to the unsettled nature of where we reside in this world right now. Aware all too well of a new wave, not a tidal wave, of the virus spreading across the nation. And so we hold those who have worked hard on the front lines, who continue to do so, those who are filling the hospitals and are ill at home, those who are caring, and those who are grieving. We offer our great good wishes to those members across the political spectrum who are giving their time to ensure that the vote last week is counted fairly and properly, and hope that their work can help settle us a bit as we move forward. We have to take a breath again this week. Try. Breathing in peace. Breathing out love. Please join me in the spirit of meditation. Spirit of love, God of our deepest understanding, we come together to share the full range of joys and sorrows that each member of our community holds at this time. We honor those who have had to bear the heavy burden of loss in a pandemic that still rages. We know the individual and collective anxieties of a nation in the midst of struggle and change. And on top of this, all the normals, ups and downs that make for our everyday. Despite and because of these things, we pause here to consider where we are as a faith community and where we might be bound. Here, in this moment of flux, we can remember, we can feel how strongly we are bound together in love, our separation fueling our memories. And we wonder what we could be if we reflected more generously and joyously that love, that healing spirit, our core values out into the world. Who we say we are doesn't always match up well with what we actually do, true for us as individuals and for us as a congregation. It remains far too easy to stay stuck in old ways, to reach out for the same old supports, reflecting not so much our vital living tradition than our level of comfort. Spirit of life, may we find the wisdom, strength, and courage not to wait until the world says we can emerge back into the light. Let us instead imagine a world that works for everyone and begin now, in this moment, in whatever way we can, to be that new world, committing to its ever-growing, ever-changing, ever-loving future. Let's take a few minutes in silence. And let's enjoy now our musical meditation.
One seed is all it takes to grow a forest. One candle can light a dark room. One voice is enough, speaking words of love. Each moment becomes what we choose. Do you want a new world? A world that works for everyone? Open your heart and let it be. We can become the new world. Mother Earth beneath the sky. She's waiting for you and for me. Our dreams light the path for us to walk on. Our songs help our spirits align. And each little child helps remind us why we not only might, we must thrive. For everyone, open your life and let it be. We can become the new world. Mother Earth beneath the sky. She's waiting for you and for me to be a new world. Just this thought, it has begun. But don't you wanna see a new world? Your Mother Earth beneath the gray sky, counting on you and me to be a new
A post-election reflection. My husband and I had a socially distanced, safe, careful dinner with another couple last Saturday, the day the election was called. When I asked our companions how they were feeling, the husband said he felt like he was experiencing political PTSD. That struck me, and I laughed in acknowledgement that I felt the same way. For one day, I felt a bit lighter. One day. But soon felt the return of a feeling that is destabilizing. Each day feels like trying to keep my balance in a rocking boat, fearing that I might be tossed into an angry sea of danger. Yep, in the hierarchy of human needs, the need for security is right up near the top. When we look back on 2020 and recall the moments that will stay with us probably forever, one of my moments will be from last August when Michelle Obama admitted to experiencing low-grade depression. I was grateful to her, then and still am. If she could admit it, so could I. Although I won't presume to put myself in the same category as Michelle Obama, I consider myself a high-functioning adult, serving as the hub of a large connected family, and continuing my career as a teacher into my 70s. She gave me permission to admit how strongly my behaviors lean toward push through, be strong, don't let anything get you down. Depression is weakness. In 2020, I've had more than a few days when that hasn't worked for me. A few days ago, I came across an article titled, "This is Your Brain on Hope." So of course I read it. I wanted something more than the drumbeat of advice to maintain routines, eat healthily, exercise, meditate, etc. Those are things I do in normal times, and of course I stick with them in tough times. But 2020 has strained the limits of self-help. In the article, the writer, a former brain scientist, confirms that yes, a hopeful brain actually functions better than a pessimistic brain. I think we can all attest to that. But how can I stay optimistic in the face of multiple anxiety-producing challenges? For me, that's the bottom line question. My rise and shine mother gifted me her marvelous upbeat approach to life. But even that has been put to the test. The necessity for optimism has gone way beyond what it used to be for me. Hope is much more now than having a sunny outlook for the future. Optimism requires 3 foundational items. Number 1, you need to have a focused plan and focused thoughts. 2, you must develop strategies in order to achieve your goals. And 3, you have to be motivated to make the effort required to actually reach your goals. The word agency gets a lot of buzz these days, even outside of business. It describes a mindset based on intentionality and developing a personal capacity to accomplish something. Despite what some critics may say about agency as a concept, it's the only path I can choose. Wishing isn't enough. Hoping without action isn't enough. Blaming and complaining is just miserable. So, do we want and need a hopeful brain? Absolutely. Can we trust that a sense of agency, getting involved and working toward goals, can heal our political PTSD? It's the best thing I've got going right now. Having been a part of this wonderful activist congregation since the last election in 2016, I'll bet many of you are nodding your head in agreement with me right now.
Well, what a great lead-in that is. If you're nodding your head with Catherine, then this will be easy. This is the opportunity that we take every week to express, to act on our agency as members of this congregation, to provide support for all the things that do happen here, that continue to happen despite the pandemic, and that will happen, we know, as we move forward. This morning's offering for the ongoing work and mission of this congregation will be gratefully received.
When I wake up in America, I see my neighbors there with every type of clothes and shoes, hats and skin and hair, every fine belief and custom in America. Our stories fill the air. Wake up,
Despierta,
wake up,
despierta.
wake up in America. The light in the harbor shines for us all. When I wake up, I see the kids playing happily, happily swaying. Good to be staying in a place like this, with a face like this. When I wake up in America, I put away my fear, and I love my neighbor as myself. And I say, I'm glad that you're here. We have found ourselves together in a land we dream could be. When we wake up in America, everybody will be free. Wake up,
Despierta,
wake up,
despierta.
wake up, please, America. The light in the harbor shines for us all. When I wake up, when you wake up, when we wake up in America.
The next reading is a poem titled Fault Line by the Reverend Robert Walsh. And if you know poetry, you know that most good poems present a metaphorical way of understanding something, and this is no exception. Fault line. I have to think back to when I was a young student in geography class, and my geography teacher said that the Earth's crust, which I thought was solid, had tectonic plates that can shift and buckle. And that sounded really scary to me, and, well, it is. So this is about those shifting plates. I'd like you to listen for something as I read this poem. I would like you to listen for a phrase that says, "Trust more the tensile strands." Tensile meaning the capability of being stretched. Did you ever think there might be a fault line passing underneath your living room? A place in which your life is lived, in meeting and in separating, wandering and telling? Unaware that just beneath you is the unseen seam of great plates that strain through time, and that your life, already spilling over the brim, could be invaded, sent off in a new direction, turned aside by forces you were warned about but not prepared for. Shelves could be spilling out, the level floor set at an angle, in some seconds shaking. You would have to take your losses, do whatever must be done next. When the great plates slip and the earth shivers and the flaw is seen to lie in what you trusted most. Look not to more solidity, to weighty slab of concrete poured, or strength of cantilevered beam to save the fractured order. Trust more the tensile strands of love that bend and stretch to hold you in the web of life that's often torn, but always healing. There's your strength. The shifting plates, the restive earth, your room, your precious life, they all proceed from love, the ground on which we walk together.
The ground has shifted, is still shifting. Where do we go from here? Or where do we go from here? Or where do we go from here? Or where do we go from here? I'd like you, if you would, to think about a moment or an event you have experienced in the life of this congregation. One that stands out in your mind as a positive experience. If you've only joined us online since the beginning of the pandemic, maybe you think about a service that particularly struck chords with you. Take a second to think about a moment or a time or a person. And holding that memory, I want you to think about whether or not that particular memory, that instance, reflects something of the core strengths or values that we hold as a congregation. And what that might be. If you think about greeting each other in the sanctuary that we all miss so much, you might think about that core strength of community and love, compassion. Think next about how, in your time here, you have chosen to amplify that strength, to pass it along, both in the congregation and in your life. A moment perhaps when you have greeted somebody with love and affection, thinking about the strength of community. And now when you take another minute to think about all that's going on in the world, within our community, even within our congregation, do you see anywhere where we are compromised, where we are threatened? What's going on in the world that threatens who we are? Obviously, the pandemic has created separation that we hope, I think many of us know we will overcome, but there it is. What other things can you think of in the world that brings you pause and threatens the way that we think, that we hold those values that we hold dear? Those core strengths and values that you identified, and I'm sure that each of you identified something both similar and different. And those threats that you perceive out in the world or even close at hand, those are all real. And of course, our role, our job, our our motivation of agency, if you will, is to match our great strengths, our core values, the things we hold dear, against those things that threaten us, and find a way to act, to make change, even in our small corner of the world. A couple of years ago, more than 70 people gathered in this space to do this exercise together, to conceive of our strengths and weaknesses, our opportunities and threats, and to begin to mold an idea of who we could be, where we could go. No one foresaw a pandemic. No one put that on the list of threats. Oddly enough, on the list of threats or trends, no one put the movement for Black lives. The world changes and still is changing. The great divisions in our nation were not considered per se, maybe vaguely within some of the other things that we identified, but when we think about our nation today, what do we think about but these great divides between people on multiple spectrums? In this moment, today, where do our strengths and passions meet the needs of the world? Where do we go from here? As many of you know, I am hoping to study the art of conflict transformation when I go on sabbatical in a year and a half or so. And I've already started reading along those lines. One of the great minds in that field is Jean-Paul Lederach, who speaks about or questions how we create transformation while still living in the midst of upheaval. He says there are 4 things that we need to do. Well, first, he says that we need to exhibit, we need to have some sort of moral imagination based in our core values, an ability to imagine possibility. Maybe something we've never thought of before. New ways of being. New ways of finding reconciliation. He talks about 4 disciplines that are required to do this. The moral imagination requires the capacity to imagine ourselves in a web of relationships that includes our enemies, our perceived enemies. A moral imagination requires the capacity to imagine ourselves in a web of relationships that includes our perceived enemies. Next, we need to sustain a paradoxical curiosity that embraces complexity without relying on that dualistic polarity that does separate us. We need to follow a fundamental belief in and a pursuit of the creative act. We can't fall back on those props we've held in the past. We need to let those go and reach for something new and possible. And finally, the moral imagination, the way forward, requires that we take a risk and step into the mystery of the unknown that lies beyond the far too familiar landscapes that we have been living in. None of these are easy things. When Catherine talks about agency and taking action, we need to consider where the motivation for that action is, and it does reside in our core, in our deeply held beliefs, our sense of fairness, of justice, of equality, of compassion, our sense of an interdependence, which doesn't just mean you and me, it means everything. Unitarian Universalists struggle sometimes to move into this realm. We struggle with our own sense of the importance of the individual. It misguides our ability to engage in change. We cling to an exceptionalism, a sense of being better, whether that resides in our intellectualism or our education or both. It undermines the possibility of something that comes from an unknown source, a new idea. It undermines our ability to relate with people who work on a wholly different plane. We also have an allergy to power and authority. Both in our local congregations and beyond, we question, rightly so, but we need to be able to give our own sense of support to those things that matter to us in order to be miserable in our discomfort, in our disquiet, in our complaining. When I talk about Unitarian Universalism, I talk about Unitarian Universalism in general and in the particular of our congregation. And so where do we go with all that? Where do we go from here? We start still and again and always with our core values. We need to deepen into those, to pause, take a deep breath, and reflect on what they are for individuals and for our collective community. We need to remind ourselves of those things we already know, but from which we easily get distracted. That these things that threaten us are real, that there are inequities in the world and in our society that demand a rethinking of who we are and what we are called to do, both in the minutiae of our everyday and in our place in the grand scheme of things, in the short term and in the long. And more central to this conversation is that we have within us the power and the love to move beyond our comfort zones, our familiar props, to respond in collaborative, constructive, and healing ways, to be one family, one community, one house, to be grounded in love. Last week, I offered an opportunity to take a deep breath. I did it again today, and I'll do it right now. If you're feeling tight in the center or your shoulders are tense, wherever you feel that, let's take a second. Breathe in and let it go. Do it again. Breathe in and let it go, opening to possibility. We are called by our faith and our conscience to act for justice and compassion. As Cornel West has said, justice is what love looks like in public. As the long arc of the universe bends towards justice. It is our spiritual and moral center that keeps us grounded, that allows us to change the equation. In our center, we find the well springs of hope, inspirational words, stories of our lives and of our companions' lives. We recognize at our center how important love is in binding us together, keeping us strong. Together we create for one another sanctuaries of safe spaces despite those threats, drawing strength from our ancestors and hope for our vision of a beloved community. We do all this. And all we need to do is take a breath, an expansive breath, and share more generously, more gratefully with the world. Everything proceeds from love. When we wake up to that in our openness, when we think about this wild and precious life, a new world can emerge. Let me close with these words from Leslie Takahashi, whose words I open with today. All that we have ever been and all that we have ever loved stand with us now on the brink of all that we aspire to create. A deeper peace, a larger love, a more embracing hope. Let us go forward in that love and hope. Our benediction comes from the Reverend Gary Smith, minister in Concord, Massachusetts for 22 years prior to my being there as an intern, now 7 years ago, 8. That congregation speaks these words together aloud at the end of every service. Speak them with me if you know them. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. And have a wonderful day. Our postlude today is We Shall Be Known by Mamuz. It has become something of an anthem in the Unitarian Universalist sphere and beyond, in hoping for a new and compassionate world. Enjoy.
We shall be known by the company we keep as the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known as the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves back to the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep as the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known as the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that all thrive. It is time we lead ourselves back to the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead as love.